Hey guys, this is Comic Uno, and today I'm doing Comic Uno's Best Comics of the Week, and this is a show where I review all the comics I've read this week in one show. We go least favorite to best pick of the week and everything in between. And before I get started, at the end of the video, we talk about the viewer's pick of the week, so in the comments below, let me know your pick of the week for a chance to be featured. Also, be sure to give this video a like, it really does help the channel. Now let's get into the books. I had about 17 books, which is crazy, another huge haul. I know next month we have those 5 Wednesdays, so they're a bit more spread out. But let's get into number 17 for me, which is New History of the DC Universe issue 1. I've read a few of these in the past with Mark Waid. He did a lot of those storylines, and with these books usually do a good job at saying, okay, this is the minute history that you might not picked up on, or even some new history you're kind of adding into the universe because of these textbook-like books. But it is very textbooky. It really depends on what side of the DC universe you like. If you love lore, this is it for you. There's a ton of lore, especially the history of DC, the beginnings. And for me, that's the side of DC Comics I don't love as much, and I'm not as big on the lore. So obviously in comics in general, you need lore, but to know the minute details of lore, you know, that's not my wheelhouse as much. So giving that 2 stars, and that is number 17. Moving on to number 16, which is Absolute Wonder Woman issue 9. This is just more of a personal preference. It's so funny with the Absolute titles. I feel like no one has the direct answer of what the best Absolute title is, because the Absolute universe has done such a beautiful job at telling great stories for particular audiences. And for me, Absolute Wonder Woman, and Wonder Woman in general, usually not a character that I love. I like her, what she stands for, but her stories, I just tend not to read her ongoing books. And I feel the same way about this. I've given it a shot. I think it's a good story. It's just not particularly for me, and this was a little bit of a slower one. And with 17 books, I probably will drop this to make my pull list a little smaller. So giving that 2.5 stars, and that is number 16. Moving on to number 15, which is the Uncanny X-Men issue 16. This just has to do with the arc. I haven't been really a fan of this character and the New Orleans setting for this arc. It just felt very long to me, and I just couldn't get into the character. I like the beginning. I like the setup of this idea that the city is pro-mutant. I want to see where that ends up going. But the middle stuff, and again, the more mythos-driven stuff just didn't do it for me. So giving that one 2.5 stars, even though I did like the artwork a lot for that one. All right, moving on to number 14, which is the last issue of Deadpool, and that is Deadpool issue 350. They are spinning off to a team-up book with the Wolverines, which I'll be picking up. But I don't love anniversary issues. They're really hard to do, especially when you have like 4 stories. One's connected to a manga I didn't even know existed until this book, and then the others are just kind of short stories. And the first story being everything tying up with a bow, right? They just have to end the run. There's nothing too exciting in there. So for me, it was just a lackluster issue, and mostly because they had to use all that room to tell an anniversary issue instead of just telling a big issue to end the run, or a big issue that was a little bit more just about the characters and the run. So giving that 2.5 stars, and that is number, I believe that is number 14. Moving on to number 13, which is VR Troopers issue 1. I don't know much about VR Troopers besides of what I know from the Power Rangers Prime book, and that's how I feel about this issue, where I think it's a good issue. Like, I liked the setup for the characters, but because I've never seen VR Trooper, I also just don't really have a connection, and I don't think this issue made me have a connection to these characters. I think it just introduced these characters in a good way. I understand who the characters are, I just don't know if I'm hooked for the characters, and I think the hook would depend on how much of a VR Trooper fan you are. I don't think I'll get the next issue just because, again, there's always a lot of books out there and I am not connected to the franchise, but glad for all the VR Trooper fans that I've been hearing wanting a book, finally getting a book. So giving that one 3 stars, and that is number 13. Moving on to number 12, which is the Incredible Hulk issue 26. I like this issue a little bit more than I thought I would. I thought it was gonna be another like just kind of blanket team up issue, but Winter Soldier being here actually had a reason where we get to see Charlie's character is convinced by him to kind of dig a little deeper with the Bruce Banner and Hulk situation, and then kind of sees the monster he is, and that affects her as well. So I like to see more of their relationship, and I thought it was a good point A to point B issue. So giving that 3.5 stars, and that is number 12. Moving on to number 11, a little lower than it usually is, but kind of goes back to the point A, point B situation, and that's Superman issue 27. A good issue, but it's more of a setup for bigger things happening. Lex Luthor, kind of leaning more towards being a villain. Lois dealing with not having her powers anymore. It's really that coming to an end, but there's nothing spectacular about this issue. I don't think there's anything too big that happens, but there's some good movement that happens. So giving that 3.5 stars, and that is number 11. Moving on to number 10, which is Feral, issue 14. I like this issue. I thought some of the romance was a little weird. It's always weird to see like romance with kind of, pet-like characters. That was a weird choice to have as we're 14 issues in. It just wasn't something that was established in the other issue. So it was weird to see that so present in this one, but I like the Walking Dead element. I like that every single time they feel safe, there's always this thing that makes you feel like you're on the edge of your seat, especially with the new characters that are usually introduced, where you're like, oh, maybe I shouldn't trust them. So if you missed The Walking Dead, I really recommend Feral. It honestly feels like the animal version of that book. And, I'm curious to see what these new characters are going to bring, and some of what the romance does for the personal relationships between these characters. So giving that 3.5 stars, and that was number 10. Moving on to number 9, which is The Thing, issue 2. Honestly, this probably would have been in my top 5 if it was a smaller week. I did like this issue. I thought it was an interesting part 2 to what I thought was a great part 1. And we just get to see a little bit more about The Thing's background of his relationship with this guy who's kind of bringing him into this mystery. And what I like the most is, why is this niece being kidnapped by people like Kingpin? Like, what does she have to do with the superhero world? So that was something I was really curious about, and I think this issue did a good job at building towards. So giving that one 3.5 stars, and then it's number 9. Moving on to number 8, which is Wolverine and Kitty Pryde, issue 3. I've said this with every review of this book. If you like the original, I think you're gonna like this one. I think actually it's a really good continuation of that. It has a very similar vibe, especially towards the language. It expands on things that I missed from that first series. That first series doesn't focus on Carmen, doesn't focus on Kitty Pryde's dad that much, but this book really does. And that was something I'm like, oh, I wish they explored that more in volume 1. And I'm glad they're doing it here. They have a kind of interesting twist with Kitty being taken over by like AI in the end. It feels a little jump the shark, but then also I feel like fits with the Ogun stuff, and then also her connection to technology. So I just kind of had a fun time with this. So if you like the original series, I think this is a good follow-up to that. So giving that one 3.5 stars, and that is number 8. Moving on to number 7, which is Predator vs. Spider-Man issue 3. I can't believe there's only one issue left of this, but there's actually 2 books that are mentioning heat waves in the series, which is so fascinating because obviously these books are written months before. And right now in New York City, we are dealing with like 100-degree heat wave, so I'm really feeling that as I read these books. But this is just pure fun and pure horror, which I like. If you're looking for the popcorn flick that has a little flair, that's what this brings. Because, I always complain about the popcorn flick comics where I'm like, I wish there was just a little more. This is how you do it. I feel like there's just the right amount of story, while really it's just an action horror book. And I enjoyed this issue. I enjoyed the movement of the different characters and just thought the horror elements of it. So overall, giving that one 4 stars, and that is number 7. Moving on to number 6, which also brings us to our main topic, and that is Ultimate Spider-Man issue 18. Now let's talk about the main topic, and then we'll talk about the actual issues. There's been kind of rumors, kind of not, that the Ultimate Spider-Man and all the other Ultimate titles are going to be ending with issue 24. The reason being is that one of the creators of, I think, Ultimate X-Men said, hey, if you ever thought our book was going to change, it's not, that this is what our book is. And then he mentions like there's 6 issues left, and that's for all the Ultimate Universe titles are gonna have 6 issues. So is this officially confirmed by Marvel? No, and that's why it's a little bit of a harder topic to talk about, and also it kind of goes into rumor territory, even though there's a little bit more facts behind it. But it's not officially confirmed that the Ultimate Universe is ending, but it's, with these type of notes, they usually are pretty confirmed. So I'm curious to see what that means for the Ultimate Universe. Obviously, I don't think that means the Ultimate Universe is actually ending. It's one of the better products from Marvel, and from what I can understand, a very successful product from Marvel. But I also don't know if that means that we're going to get some creative team shifts. We're going to get more new directions for these characters because of whatever's happening with the Maker and the bigger events, and even with this Incursion event. Are we going to see things smashed together a little bit more? Are we going to see the old Ultimate Universe be involved? And that's the part I'm curious about. Why are they relaunching? Is it going to be just like, we need to get new issue 1, so that's why we're doing this, because we want more new people to jump on, it's been a while? Or is it because they really are changing the direction of the Ultimate Universe? Are things going to be connected more? Are creative teams leaving? Are we going to have Jonathan Hickman still on this book? It's been a lot of issues with Hickman, but also Hickman's known for doing longer runs. So I'm very curious what that means. Ultimate Spider-Man doesn't really feel like it's ended. I feel like it's just starting to tell its story. So I hope it stays the direction it's been going, because like, why put a wrench into something that's been working? I think Ultimate Spider-Man has been near perfect, so I don't really want to see another direction and another wrench thrown in, unless it's something that's already been played with and developed within its own series and not whatever the Maker's been doing. So that's kind of my worry, is again, like, why put a wrench into something that has been working? But then also, on the flip side, Ultimate Spider-Man is also the only Ultimate series I'm reading. I know a lot of people like Ultimates, but other than that, the other titles really haven't gotten its shine like something like Absolute Flash and all the other Absolute titles. Is like everything feels like it's being talked about, and maybe they're trying to rework things to make it more cohesive and connected. So you're going to want to read all the Ultimate titles. So we'll see what happens. It's going to be a few months from now. My guess we'll get that official announcement at San Diego Comic-Con. So we'll see. Overall, let's talk about the issue now, which I'm giving 4 stars. This issue, we get to see, again, kind of that point A to point B where Harry's involved. We get a little bit more with Gwen and her fan club over there. And then I thought the most interesting thing was the ending with Spider-Man's son, and he has this girlfriend with Black Cat, and then Black Cat kind of tricks him because she's Black Cat, and he's kind of stuck between her and Kingpin. So I'm like, okay, this is a good build up to probably what next issue is going to be a stronger issue, but I liked the chess pieces that are moved in this issue to kind of get to that point. So giving that 4 stars, and that is number 6. Moving on to number 5, which is Absolute Martian Manhunter, issue 4. I kind of like how wacky it is. The last 2 issues, I feel like it was wacky, but it was kind of the same type of wacky. This, we're getting a little bit of different stories. Another book about heat waves, but makes sense with Martian Manhunter and their weakness being fire. But I really liked his relationship with his wife in this issue, and how that was challenged, and how the topsy-turviness was built into that conflict that they've been having. Enjoyed that, and I just like that you never know what's going to happen next, and really you don't really know what's going on in general, but in a fun, mysterious way. So giving that one 4 stars, and that is number 5. Moving on to number 4, which is Minor Arcana, issue 8. Another solid issue where we get to see the characters move and just have some great development as our main character opens up the shop again, and, we get to see her relationships, I wouldn't say challenged, but I would say grow. We get to see her relationship with her mom, and her mom finding this kind of later in life romance. Then we have maybe a romance of her own with this other girl who's having problems with her brother. There's some good movement in this issue, but so gradual, and I love that. It's organic movement that just really always moves the characters and makes them be put in interesting places. And I like the art change too. I like that we have Lemire taking a step side to not focus just more on writing, and I'm sure all his other projects, and getting a similar toned artist here. That also brings like a kind of cartoony feel to it. So giving that 4 stars, and that is number 4. Moving on to number 3, which is The Seasons, issue 5. I like this issue. I think it progresses that mystery of who these carnival people are, what world they are giving to the people that get involved, and our main character not really having it, but seeing her family affected by it. And I just feel like there was a lot of good movement in this issue, all while making the mystery even more intriguing. So giving that one 4 stars, and that is number 3. Moving on to number 2, which is Rogue Sun, issue 28. This was just a really fun issue where, again, we do get a lot of movement with our cliffhanger, where we get to see our main character's mom being involved in maybe the villains here, which I thought was really interesting. And I like just seeing that sibling dynamic. I just enjoyed them arguing and trying to figure out how can we be two rogue sons. It feels similar to what's been going on in Radiant Black and in those past issues with Nathan and Marshall, but it has its own twist to it. So it makes sense for the Radiant Black / Massiveverse. I just had a fun time with it. I just thought this was a really good character-driven issue while also progressing that mythos as well. So giving that one 4 stars, and that is number 2. Moving on to number 1, which is Green Lantern issue 24. I'm just a big Carol and Hal fan, and this was a good issue between the two, where they just start understanding each other more. Carol's like, now that I've been part of the Justice League, I get what you've been doing as Green Lantern. And we get to see them work together as they solve this mystery that becomes a big piece to the bigger mystery of the emotional spectrum that's been playing a part in both Green Lantern Corps and Green Lantern. So it was a big plot-heavy issue in some ways, but all told through character, which I liked, and there's just a lot of good moments between Carol and Hal. So that's my pick of the week, and I gave that 4 stars. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. This is Comic Uno. Let me know in the comments below what your pick of the week was, and last week's pick of the week was Absolute Flash, and here are some comments about that. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. This is Comic Uno, and I'll see you guys in the next one.